back to another episode of The Way of Wonder. I'm Bill Donahue from the Theology of the Body Institute. Glad you're making time to watch this video as we kind of wander through things beautiful, true, and good. I'm here with my trusty sidekick, or colleague, I should say. Not a sidekick. He's laughing already.
I'll be your sidekick.
Father Patrick Schultz, sidekick extraordinaire. And this week, this episode, Father Patrick, after we dive in, he's going to lead. As you hopefully are getting accustomed on this podcast, we surprise each other with something beautiful that struck us each week. So this week, it's his turn. And our format again, is just to read it, to meditate on it a little bit, whatever it is, then to open to contemplation of the thing, and then to talk about how will this change me and how will I be a little different. That's how it works. That's how God works. He comes to us through things material and lifts us up to the spiritual. Can I get an amen, Father Pat?
Amen. Hallelujah.
All right. Ooh, double whammy. Okay. I'm in the receptive posture to receive whatever you got for me this week.
Well, we're going to start with a quote. This is a quote from Pope Francis. He was speaking to young people, which I think that's one of the modes of Pope Francis when I think he's at his best, when he's in that sort of pastor mode. So this is what he said to them. I think I sent you the quote, Bill, if you want to follow along. He said this. He's asking them, do all of you have a desiring heart? A heart that desires? Think and answer in silence and in your heart. Do you have a heart that desires? Or do you have a closed heart? A heart that is asleep? A heart that is anesthetized against the things of life? End quote. This is one of those off-the-cuff comments that he made too, I think, where this wasn't prepared text. This was him just kind of looking out at the crowd, a sea of young people, all with their phones that are like, Pope Francis, right? And I think he asked them this question: do you have a heart that desires? Yeah. So what strikes you in this, Bill?
The whole thing, but
Yep.
Let me go back. This is so good. This is an off the cuff of Pope Francis that I really enjoy. Do all of you have a desiring heart? First off, right out of the gate, go back to your teenage years. You're just sometimes a hot mess, not knowing what the heck to do, but you are coming into your own and discovering the world of things. I love how he says at the very end, like the things of life. And he's like giving permission to tap into what do you want, desire. Love that, because it reminds me of Jesus's first words to the first disciples. He says, if I'm getting this right, what are you looking for? Isn't that the first words of Jesus to the early disciples? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
It's like, is it to
the Gospel of John? Yeah, the disciples of John the Baptist. What are you looking for? What are you seeking? What do you desire?
So it's literally right in that vein of, what do you want? Like, you're allowed to actually ask yourself, what do I desire? What am I hungry for? And then kind of discern that. I think that it's beautiful to give permission to that. And then he says, think and answer in silence. And if he's talking to young people, that is not a quiet period of life, especially with the gadgets, like you said, the smartphones. There's like nonstop chatter. So he's actually saying, shh, quiet. Think about this in silence, because that's when you'll be able to be more reflective. And then I love how he repeats it. Do you have a heart that desires, or do you have a closed heart? There's like a simplicity here that's, you're open or you're closed, right? You're asleep or you're awake. Love it. Great quote.
Yeah, there's that word anesthetize again too. We talked about that episode or two ago.
We did.
Right? The etymology of that word meaning numb to beauty. Which is perfect. So great, especially for us in this podcast. Numb to beauty. Are you just drugged out on the things of this life where you cannot really be affected, that you've rendered your heart closed, numbed, distracted? Or are you awake?
Yeah.
Are you sensitized? Right? Are you able to be affected by the things of this world? Like the things of God that come to us, right, in and through the world. I'm thinking about the Saint Augustine line from his Confessions, right? Some of the most famous lines of the Christian tradition outside of Scripture, right? You have made us for yourself, O Lord.
Hmm.
Our hearts are restless until they rest in you. And I think what the Pope is getting at here is that, like, that restless heart that Saint Augustine talked about, it's like the restless heart has been put to sleep in our sort of modern age. This sort of narcotic drip, drip, drip of
Hmm.
worldliness that just kind of puts the heart to sleep. And he's asking, like, is your heart awake? Can your heart be awakened um, to
So good.
desires? Yeah,
So good. I'm thinking of that drip, drip, drip. It's like it's actually a saturation of it's not we're not in a desert of things that are beautiful. It's almost like we're in a deluge of it now where and sometimes it's the hideous and the ugly is also present, but we're so flooded by images today in the culture, especially young people, that it's
yeah,
just saturation point. Like I can't even they might be seeing objectively beautiful things as they flick through Instagram or they're, running from here to there, not just plugged in, but in life. But we're moving at such a pace and it's just, I can't even process. Like I'm not allowing myself the silence, as he says, to actually sit before the rose, sit before the tree dripping with rain and listening to it for 5 minutes. It's that I think that's what leads to a numbing is just like the saturation.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think you're right. I think it's not drip drippy. You're right. I think it is this saturation. I think that's a good segue though into the piece that I've picked for you today.
Ooh.
Um, so you last week you selected a piece from was it the 15th century?
Yes, yes. Ghiberti's Doors of Paradise, Gates of Paradise.
Okay, that was great. Okay, so I went contemporary on you this week.
Okay, time traveling.
So the painting I selected for you, yeah, we're time traveling. It's a painting by a contemporary artist. His name is Greg Olsen. I know you know the work of Greg Olsen. The
Bring it
painting is
on.
called Just for a Moment. Thomas, let's bring this painting up.
Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of my all time top 12. Oh,
All time top 12.
like, because I can never say one.
Yeah, I hear
Oh,
ya.
my gosh.
I
This
hear
is,
ya.
uh, this is such a gem. This is going to be a 3-hour episode. I can already see it. For just a
What
moment.
strikes you, friend?
Yeah, I'm relaxed already. When I look at this work, and I love this work, when I look at it, I'm instantly invited into relaxation.
Yeah.
The framing of it, the composition of it is just brilliant. You've got this. I feel like I'm kind of at their level. They're lying on the ground, but I feel like I am too as I look on this art.
Hmm.
Like I'm kind of on my little mat and my little mossy patch here, and I kind of look to my right, and I see the young Christ, and I see the young Mother Mary. Man, Jesus' little arms behind his head, just kick back. I know we
Let me
can't.
share a little bit.
Yeah, go
This
ahead.
is this so Greg Olson. He's
Mm,
a contemporary American painter. He's from Idaho.
mm.
So I just imagining, him growing up in the stars that he got to see
Oh,
versus
right.
many of us who kind of lived in cities. So this is what he says about this painting. Listen to this. He says, "The lessons taught to me by my mother had a profound influence on my life. I can't help but think that Jesus was similarly impacted by the nurturing wisdom of his own mother. I like to imagine some of his teachings were influenced by her insightful lessons." Isn't that great?
Some of his teachings were influenced by her insightful lessons.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So good. Okay. I'm just going to
So
linger here. I'm just going to look at it.
one of the reasons why I wanted to pair this image with the quote that we had, uh,
Hmm.
Pope Francis talking about desire. So this word desire, one of the things that you and I know both love is etymology and understanding where words come from and what they
Mm-hmm.
mean. And desire is one of those words, right? Desire, from the stars, or to the stars, depending on how
Yeah.
you translate that, from the
Yeah.
stars or to the stars. Or even, I think this is so interesting too, that in the French, meaning from the Father, which is
Wow.
powerful. Like you
Wow.
know, you use the word this colt was sired by so and so, like SIRE,
Oh,
sired,
right, right.
right? So from the stars to the stars, or from the Father.
Oh, I never heard
And
that
I love that
translation.
you've got, isn't that great? So you got
Mm.
Mary and this, I don't know, 10-year-old, 11-year-old Christ lying on the ground.
Hmm.
And I picture her, there's so much you can hear in this, but I hear Mary leaning over to Jesus and asking, "What's that one's name?" Pointing to the stars.
Oh, wow. That's great. He knows each one by name. He's given each one a name. Oh,
Yeah.
through him, all things were made. Gosh. But he, in his incarnation now, sees with human eyes, sits under it. Oh my gosh. The artist enters his own story, his own painting.
There's yeah, oh gosh, there's so much. I have a few zoom ins here. I think Thomas, zoom into
Yeah,
the
let's
next
do it.
image. Should go one more, Thomas.
Oh, man.
That
They see.
moment.
Yep, that's it. Sorry. Get out of my way. I got to talk about this. My favorite part of this whole painting is this little foot. This little foot. Like, it's incredible to me that that can be so evocative of so much, like so tender and so human, so connected. Oh, that's so good. The warmth.
It's
You
such a
can feel
human
it.
thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things about the incarnation that is so staggering, right? I That we believe that yeah, God took on flesh, but like he had a little foot rest on his mother's ankle.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
God's foot resting on Mary's ankle. And that her, like, she's not this porcelain, you know,
Mm,
perfection that's hanging out on a cloud bank, but she was a real woman who you could touch, who you could rest your foot on. Like this moment,
that's it.
there's just so much connection in this.
You pause, pause. You just described Our Lady in a way that most I'm sure that's what we've got. Porcelain perfection on a cloud bank. Literally, like detached from the earth, static, almost untouchable. Even like the word immaculate, which she is, it's almost like, so don't you touch with your sinful, dirty hands that we can't actually access this mother who was actually anything but all that. She was so earthy and warm and accessible. Of course, because like so was Jesus. The thing the
Yeah.
Pharisees kind of like ripped him for so much was that he dines with tax collectors and sinners. He's touching lepers. He's so to the other point, right? To the artist point here, where'd he get all that? He's also formed, of course, in the Father, but from his mother and from his earthly father Joseph. He is warm, affectionate. He dives in to the mess and isn't afraid
Yeah.
of like getting in touch with the real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we zoom out to the big picture, the whole full composition again? Oh man, I never get tired of looking at this painting. Greg
You can
Olsen.
like hear the crickets.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Gosh, it's just this word relaxation just keeps coming in, like this relaxed but fully engaged substantive piece. Like it's just, this is really important. This is kind of, if the Way of Wonder had an album cover, this would be the cover.
Mm,
It's got
yeah.
everything in it. It's got heaven and earth. It's got mother and child. You know what,
What I think
too?
is so
Oh, go ahead.
amazing is that when you consider who's being depicted, right? We've been talking about it. Obviously, Mary and the child Jesus.
Mm.
But like, this is God in the flesh. And look at what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
He's in a posture of repose.
Yep.
Like Jesus' earthly ministry, 3 years, right? It was about 3 years. He spent the first 30 years of his life in utter obscurity, right? Doing life like this. This is what, when God became flesh and dwelt among us,
Mm.
he wasn't like, 3 years old, hurriedly running around the world trying to like save as many people as possible.
Fix
Like,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, he spent 30 years wasting time, let's say,
Gosh.
right? Um, that's one of the things I find so fascinating about the Lord, that
Mm-hmm.
like God's ways are just not our ways. That you would
Right.
think that the mission, the mission that he had, the mission of this boy is to effect the ransom and retrieval of the human race, to rescue man from the clutches of sin and death and hell and Satan, right?
Serious stuff.
To overthrow the ancient foe, to do cosmic battle, to
Mm-hmm.
redeem the world. And like, I'm gonna spend a few years in obscurity, and like some of those nights, I'm just gonna lay on the ground with my mom and look at the stars.
You're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls, which is a line from Sandlot. You're killing me. This, and we, like, he has the audacity to do this, right? But we can't even, he does it for years, but we feel guilty if we do it for like 30 minutes. Oh, I should really get back to
Yeah,
work. I should really get back to work. There's so much to do.
yeah,
And yet, it's the being. It's the being that actually gives meaning and direction to the doing. This being. So all of his being, still being with, being present, flows over that, and it makes those 3 years of public ministry super abundantly fruitful, right?
yeah,
He did a lot in those years, but I'm sure he also did some of this. We know he did. He rested on the mountain, prayed all
yeah,
night on the mountaintop. So we got it. It's so hard to get this. I struggle with this still, like knowing this intellectually, that the more I rest in this receptivity, the more I understand my identity, which blesses my activity. I still, like, I'm tempted to just start with the activity because I don't have time for
yeah.
the receptivity and the rest. But then I'm less successful, less fruitful. This is it. It's hard to do this.
Yeah, it was Jean Corbon who wrote the fourth section of the Catechism on prayer. I mean, imagine getting that phone call from the Holy Father. I'd like you to write the Catechism on prayer. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
he said that the most fruitful human activity, okay, so the most fruitful human doing, achieving, accomplishing, right? The most fruitful human activity is to be able to receive God.
Oh, wow.
Right? So the most fruitful thing that we can do is to be in a posture of receptivity. It's to
Mm.
develop these muscles of the heart that know how to relax finally, that know how to just
Mm.
pause, breathe, notice, drink it in.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's hard. I love you just said that cre- creating that ability to be receptive and drink. You said it's building the muscle. It isn't actually
yeah,
it's not atrophy. This is not laziness, right?
that's
This
a
isn't
great distinction. Yeah,
it's not laziness, it's not apathy, it's not ennui or boredom. There's so much going on here at levels that are so deeply human. It is work. I mean, if you don't think it's work, try it. Try to do this. Try to
hmm,
be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is God. I feel like that's also very present in this. Be still.
and the title of it too. The title is called "Just for a Moment."
Yeah.
Um, that again, it's like you don't have to do this for hours on end. If you just do this for just for a moment,
Mm.
how much more human you will be.
that gets me thinking about. Did we talk yet about the two Greek words for time, Chronos and Kairos? Have we mentioned that yet for our listeners?
I don't
I don't
think
know if we
so.
did or
No.
not. If we did, it's worth
Yeah.
repeating, so we'll do it again. So I feel like now we're in this zone of, as we're contemplating the piece now, right? Chronos is the Greek for sort of the tick, tick, tick of the clock. You know, it's measurable time. Kairos is human time. Kairos is being with. Yes, it takes chronological time to go through it. You can measure it, but you're in a measureless plate. You're not thinking about that. You're just present. And it's so fascinating because when you're in Kairos time or kairotic time, you actually feel free of the chronos. You're not even thinking about it. And so the time that passes is so richly human. All of a sudden, when you go back to look at your watch, you're like, whoa, and an hour and a half went by, or 2 hours. Like, oh my gosh. It's just this weird, like, sudden sort of being assumed into eternal time.
Mm.
Eternal time, which, as I'm looking at the painting by Greg Olsen here, it's like Mary's arm outstretched and pointing up is like they're on the earth and she's like breaking into heaven, like pointing up. So this sort of almost like Jacob's ladder, her arm, you know, ascending and descending. Oh, look at that. Nice work, Thomas. That is an invitation to kairotic time, I think. It's an invitation to, like you said, like, you know, consider the stars, ponder the stars.
And I think unless you do this, unless we have Kairos, unless we have pausing and time to take some deep breaths in silence, we're never going to be aware. We're never going to become conscious of our desires, right?
Right.
We're going to stay anesthetized. We're going to stay on that frenetic treadmill of doing, achieving, accomplishing. And we're never going to like actually feel our hearts.
Yeah.
You know, I think Our Lady, she was so perfectly receptive and so perfectly active as well. Like she receives the word from Gabriel and she immediately makes haste to the hill country, right?
Right. Right.
Hill country, like that's work, right? She's doing work. But here she is, she's in this posture of repose and at the same time stretched. And like that finger, go back to that finger, Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like a lazy little finger. It's like a totally extended pointy finger.
Yeah. It knows what it's pointing. It knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
I love that balance, her balance. Annunciation to visitation. Total receiving to total giving. Can't have one without the other either. We need to be able to do the drinking in so that we can spill out and give. She's perfect for that. Oh,
She is.
man. This is a good one. This
Thomas,
is.
can you go to the one that's by their faces? So we haven't looked at that one up close yet. Notice how their heads are tilted, right?
Yeah, they're kind of leaning
Kind
in.
of just like slightly leaning in towards each other.
Yes, yes, yes. I love her sleeves rolled up, his
Yep.
arms back behind his head. Gosh.
And the thing about him being like the age that he's depicted at here, Bill, I just am thinking about how there's a quote. 10 years old, the longing starts. What's that quote?
Walker
I know you know
Percy.
the quote.
Yeah, Walker Percy,
Yeah.
the great Catholic novelist. When we're 10 years old, the longing stirs and it never goes away. That's a good one.
And it's true. Like when I think about like what was hitting my heart when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and yeah, like that's when things start waking up.
That's actually for
Desires.
me too. The start, for me, it was the stars. I saw Star Wars right about that age, the first Star Wars movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And it, like, the stars were connected to that. I remember writing, I used to write little sci-fi stories myself for English class. I used to write, and it was always about the stars. And they were connected to something bigger and cosmic. Yeah, I remember invitations at that age through, I was sort of the product of the Steven Spielberg, George Lucas explosion of films, the Star Wars and the E.T. and the Indiana Jones, there was always this presence of another mystery, another mystical world. I feel like connected to the heavens that way. That this was sort of pre conversion or reversion or awareness of the reality of God. But it's like I knew him by another name, so to speak, through this experience of the stars, of wonder.
Mm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Stars, man. Stars do it for me. I never tire just thinking about stars, looking at the stars. It was a few years ago. Friends and I, we went on a vacation to the Outer Banks, and it was the first time that I had been to an area of the United States where it was so dark at night. You could see that the band of the Milky Way in the heavens
Yes.
above you, and I'd never seen anything like that.
Hmm.
We just all just laid out on towels on the sand on the beach and just gazed up at it
Man.
for in this posture for quite a while, just taking it in. It's yeah, it's unbelievable.
Kairos time.
Kairos time, yeah, I don't
You
even
were
know
in
how
your
long we were on the
Kairos
beach.
time. I have memories of
Yeah.
that as well. I remember we would go up to northern Maine each summer for years and years, and we were on the edge of Moosehead Lake. And I remember one night, I was probably 17. I don't even know. And a bunch of us, we bring our cousins up, my brother, some other friends. We met people at the camps, the cottages, and we're on the side of Moosehead Lake on these docks. And we had like a big old boom box. Remember those big suckers with a dual cassette? And we put in. I was already a classical music nerd even back then, and I put in Bach's cello suites. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
first one. It's so pop that in there, played it. We're looking at the stars on a dark night, and you're hearing the water lap up, and yeah, like that stuff got in my soul. Like it just burns into my memory. We saw the Milky Way. We could literally see satellites,
Mm,
not airplanes, but satellites. That's how clear things were. Yeah, it was moving. Changes you.
yeah.
Makes you feel little, in a good way. You know, um, Perspective.
I feel like this painting for us today is just like like we're both just like, "Huh."
I know. I
It's
literally,
like
yeah. I need to put this in
like
my house, like 8 foot by 10 foot,
yeah.
just like or actual size. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So let's go into the Axio piece here a little bit. Where does this lead us into? Maybe Thomas, could you bring it back to the full size?
Oh my gosh, I know exactly what I'm going to do for my Actio. Weekend's coming up soon. We've had a kind of few days of rain, but it's supposed to clear up by the weekend, and fall's coming around. I think it's time to just and in our busyness, we've missed this for probably a few weeks, months. I'm gonna get out to one of our favorite haunts and just throw the blanket down and get my kids to just waste time.
Mm,
I'm literally gonna do what this painting is doing. That's my Actio.
that's the best. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's so good. I'm thinking about like there's so many things. Like I'm just imagining conversation with Mary right now and her pointing to different things in my world
Mm.
and just like tell me about that. Like I hear her talking to Jesus, tell me about that star. What were you thinking when you made that one?
Oh
What's that
man.
one's name?
Oh my gosh.
Why did you make that one? Um, like this, she is the summation of created beauty, right? She's not an add-on to the Christian life. She is absolutely essential. You can't have God as your father if you don't have Mary as your mother. Like
Amen.
she's just so essential. And I think like if we are called to be disciples of Jesus, like followers of Jesus, uh, like this if this is where he went, right? He
Mm.
entrusted himself to her. If he, like laid on the ground next to her and gazed up at the heavens with her, um, like we have to follow him. We have to do that.
Yeah.
Let her point out the things in my life. Like what's drawing your heart right now? Like tell me about it. Like I love like her head leaned in. Like She's engaged. She's a mom. She wants to know. Tell me about it, is what I hear her saying. I think that's the axio, at least for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so deeply prayerful too. You're making me think of the original quote you started with about. It ended with Pope Francis. Is your heart anesthetized against the things of life? So you're juxtaposing that with, tell me about the things. And I went to Jesus on the road to Emmaus, where they're downcast, they're not looking up, because Jesus is with them. They're so downcast, and Jesus does this little, what things have been happening? Like, tell me what things. Very cool. Yeah, that's an invitation, and AKA this is prayer. And as you said earlier, Father Pat, there's no insignificant things. There is nothing insignificant.
No, there's not. There's not. There's not. Yeah, God wants to know about all of it. So good.
Well, I appreciate this painting so much. You knew you were going to slay me with this one.
I knew you'd like this one. Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be a few that we return, like Greg Olsen in particular. There's a few Greg Olsens that are so
oh my gosh,
powerful. All right. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for the journey. Thanks to everybody who's tuning in. If this is something that's just been a comfort or a gift, if you've joined us in this conversation and this contemplation, please share it with somebody. If you're thinking of somebody right now who is, someone who really, in your mind, really appreciates beauty, send it to them. If you're thinking of somebody who could use a dose of this, the real world, right? The gift of the world, share that. And again, in the comments below, we would love to hear from you. What are your wow moments, your way of wonder moments? What artists or events or experiences are speaking to you? So good. Father Patrick, thanks for joining me for the journey this week. I'm looking forward to next week. It's my turn.
So back to you, Bill. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, man.
All right. Appreciate it. God bless.